This fish has no teeth. It has no stomach. It lacks a tail fin to push off the water and surge forward. It has no pelvic fins, which nearly every fish on the planet possesses. It swims vertically, unique among all fish in the ocean. It's so slow that the dwarf seahorse is officially considered one of the slowest creatures in the sea. And despite all this, it's alive. Not just alive. It has thrived for about 50 million years. It has survived ice ages, mass extinctions, tectonic disasters, and complete oceanic restructuring. And when you start to understand how it managed to do this, you realize you're looking at one of nature's most incredible evolutionary solutions. Let's break it down. The very word seahorse comes from ancient Greek. Hippos means horse, and campos means sea creature. The ancient Greeks looked at this fish and saw a little underwater horse. And honestly, it's hard to blame them. Its curved neck, elongated snout, and proud posture. But that's where the resemblance ends, because what follows is pure madness. The seahorse belongs to the family Syngnathidae. Its closest relatives are pipefish and sea dragons. And here's what's important. All of this group diverged from other bony fish about 49 million years ago during the Eocene epoch. This was a time when not a single blade of grass existed on Earth, as grasslands had yet to form. Dinosaurs had gone extinct 16 million years prior. Mammals were just beginning to venture onto land. And in the warm tropical seas, one of the strangest evolutionary lines in the history of life was quietly emerging. Molecular studies, analyzing DNA, comparing mutations, and constructing genealogical trees based on genetic markers have shown that the genus Hippocampus likely originated in the western Pacific Ocean. From there, seahorses began to spread. And here's what's astonishing. They colonized the Atlantic Ocean at least twice, independently of each other. The first time was before the ancient Tethys Sea closed, which once connected today's Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. The second time was afterward, when the only route left was a long detour. This means that the seahorse's global distribution is not a mere coincidence, but a pattern that has repeated throughout history. Now, let's get to what truly turns everything upside down. In 2016, a team of evolutionary biologists, led by Professor Axel Meyer from the University of Konstanz in Germany, accomplished something no one had done before. They fully decoded the genome of the tiger seahorse. The results were so unexpected that the work was published in Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. The first finding, the rate of molecular evolution in seahorses is significantly higher than in other bony fish. This means their DNA changed faster, mutations accumulated more actively, and natural selection worked with them more intensely. The seahorse didn't just adapt, it evolved at an accelerated pace. The second finding, and this is where it gets really interesting, all those oddities that make the seahorse so different from other fish, lack of teeth, absence of pelvic fins, vertical body position, are not just soft adaptations but hard genetic events, specific gene losses and specific gene duplications, not gradual adjustments but radical redesigns. And here's one of the most striking examples. Every vertebrate on the planet, from frogs to elephants, from sharks to humans, has a gene called TBX4. This gene is responsible for the development of hind limbs. In fish, it forms pelvic fins. In us, it forms legs. Well, the seahorse lacks this gene. It has simply vanished from its genome, completely. To prove that this gene is indeed the issue, scientists conducted an experiment. They took a zebrafish, one of the main model organisms in genetics, and used CRISPR technology to disable the TBX4 gene. The result was immediate and unequivocal. The zebrafish lost its pelvic fins, just like the seahorse did millions of years ago. But evolution isn't just a story of losses, it's a story of compensations. By losing its pelvic fins, the seahorse gained something in return. Its tail, freed from the need to support a fin, transformed into a gripping tool, long, flexible, capable of wrapping around seaweed, corals, and even the tail of a partner during courtship dances. This tail became an anchor, allowing the seahorse to hold its ground in currents that would have swept away any other fish long ago. Its body is covered in bony plates, a true armor that protects it from most predators, as squeezing and crushing a seahorse is nearly impossible. And teeth. The seahorse didn't just lose its teeth. It lost the very genes that code for the proteins needed to form mineralized dental tissue. These genes have disappeared from its DNA forever. Instead of jaws with teeth, the seahorse has a long tubular snout that works like a pipette. It brings it close to its prey, instantly expands its mouth cavity, and a rush of water pulls the victim inside. No teeth are needed. Think about that. Nature took a fish and stripped it of everything that makes a fish. Fins, gone. Teeth, gone. Horizontal body position, gone. Speed, gone. And then it assembled from what remained a creature that has survived in the ocean for 50 million years. A creature that has mastered both of the planet's major oceans, produced around 46 species, and continues to puzzle biologists because, by all classical rules of evolution, it simply shouldn't exist. But it does exist. And in the next part, we'll explore how this creature's body is structured from the inside, and why its camouflage abilities, vision, and locomotion system deserve a separate discussion. If you were an engineer tasked with designing a fish, you'd probably start with a streamlined body, a powerful tail fin, and a pair of side fins for maneuvering. You'd add smooth scales to reduce water resistance and orient the entire structure horizontally, as that's how most fish on Earth are built. This is a working scheme, tested over hundreds of millions of years. Now take that scheme and throw it away, because the seahorse is an engineering project that violates all basic principles, yet somehow it functions. Let's start with movement. The seahorse has exactly one working engine, the dorsal fin, small, almost transparent, located on its back. This fin beats 30 to 70 times per second, depending on the species. That's an incredible frequency. For comparison, hummingbird wings beat 50 to 80 times per second, so the seahorse's dorsal fin operates almost at the same rate as the wings of one of the fastest birds on the planet. But there's a problem. The surface area of this fin is negligible. It creates so little thrust that the seahorse moves at a speed of about 1.5 meters per hour. To put this in perspective, a land snail moves at roughly the same speed. The seahorse literally loses the race to a snail. And yet, that's enough for it because it doesn't chase prey in open water. Its strategy is entirely different, and we'll return to that. But first, we need to understand why it doesn't sink at all. The seahorse's body is covered in bony plates. This isn't scales, but real armor. It protects well against predators, but it has a side effect. The body becomes heavy, too heavy for a creature that swims vertically and cannot move quickly. And here's where the swim bladder comes into play. In most fish, the swim bladder is simply a gas-filled sac that helps maintain the desired depth. In the seahorse, this organ is disproportionately large relative to its body size. It stretches from the neck bend. Yes, the seahorse has a neck, which is rare among fish, over a third of the length of its abdominal cavity. This bladder acts like a life vest, compensating for the weight of the bony armor. And here's the catch. If the bladder deflates even slightly, due to injury, infection, or stress, the seahorse begins to sink. It loses control over its buoyancy and descends to the bottom, from which it cannot rise. That's why even a minor illness can be fatal for a seahorse. Its life support system doesn't allow for emergencies. And for the same reason, seahorses don't undertake vertical migrations. They don't dive deep or rise sharply to the surface. The pressure change that most fish can handle easily spells disaster for a seahorse. The bladder can't adapt quickly enough, and the animal loses its ability to swim. That's why seahorses live in shallow waters, among seaweed and corals, and stick to their small patches where the pressure is stable and the depth predictable. Now, let's talk about what compensates for all this vulnerability. What makes the seahorse not just a survivor, but a thriver? Camouflage. The skin of the seahorse contains special cells, chromatophores. Each of these cells contains pigment of a specific color. Melanin provides black and brown tones. Carotenoids give yellow, orange, and red. Pteridines add additional shades of yellow. The seahorse's nervous system directly controls these cells. It can expand them, making the color brighter and more saturated, or contract them, allowing other pigments to show through. The entire process takes just a few minutes, and the seahorse completely changes its coloration, blending into the surrounding background. But here's what's truly interesting. The color change in seahorses isn't just camouflage, it's a language. When a male courts a female, he literally lights up. His body becomes brighter, more saturated, and more contrasting. He displays his best colors, just as a peacock shows off its tail. Stress also reflects in coloration. A frightened seahorse pales. Dominance, submission, readiness to mate. All of this is encoded through color. The seahorse communicates with its entire body, and every conversation partner reads these signals instantly. Some species go even further. They don't just change color, they grow actual threads and protrusions on their bodies that resemble seaweed. A seahorse covered in such protrusions and frozen among seagrass becomes indistinguishable from its environment. A predator can swim just a few centimeters away and notice nothing but another clump of seaweed. And since we're talking about uniqueness, here's a detail that sounds almost unbelievable. On the top of every seahorse's head is a bony growth called a coronet. It's a small crest or crown of bone tissue located right on the top of the head, and the shape of this coronet is unique to each individual. Like fingerprints in humans, there are no two seahorses with the same coronet. This isn't just a pretty theory. Scientists have tested this with Brazilian seahorses of the species Hippocampus radi. They photographed the coronets of captured and tagged individuals, and then, after some time, they caught the seahorses again and compared the photographs. The result was 100%. Every previously tagged seahorse was identified accurately, based solely on the shape of its coronet. Not a single error. This means researchers now have a non-invasive way to track individual seahorses in the wild, without tags, chips, or surgical intervention, just by photographing their heads. So let's put the whole picture together. Before us is a creature that can't swim quickly, can't dive deep, can't survive even a slight deflation of its swim bladder. Its only engine is a tiny dorsal fin, working at its limits. Its body is encased in heavy bony armor that would drag it to the bottom without a giant swim bladder to keep it afloat. And despite all this, it survives, because it can become invisible, because it communicates through color, because each individual carries a unique identifier on its head, as if nature decided to number them individually. And because its hunting method, and we'll discuss this in the next part, is one of the fastest and most technically sophisticated mechanisms for capturing prey in the entire animal kingdom. We've already established that the seahorse can't swim quickly, can't dive, and loses control over its body at the slightest malfunction in its swim bladder. We know it has no teeth and no stomach. And now the logical question arises: how does it eat at all? How does a creature without teeth, without a stomach, and without speed manage to obtain food in an ocean where every second inhabitant is either a predator or a prey that knows how to escape? The answer begins with genetics. The seahorse's genome lacks the genes that in other fish are responsible for forming a full stomach. This isn't atrophy or underdevelopment. These genes simply aren't in its DNA. The food the seahorse swallows doesn't linger anywhere. It passes through a short intestine almost in transit, and the organism manages to extract only a small portion of nutrients from it. It's like eating, but absorbing only 1/10 of each meal. The consequences are predictable. The seahorse must eat constantly. An adult consumes between 30 and 50 portions of small crustaceans each day, and a fry, just born and growing at a furious pace, eats up to 3,000 tiny organisms in 10 to 12 hours. 3,000 in half a day. The seahorse isn't just a fish. It's a machine for continuous consumption of plankton, and if this machine stops for even a day, it will die. But how does it catch prey if it's slower than a snail? And this is where the real excitement begins. The seahorse is one of the fastest hunters in the ocean, not in terms of movement speed, but in terms of attack speed. The entire mechanism for capturing prey takes about 4 milliseconds, 4/1000ths of a second. A human eye blinks in 100 to 400 milliseconds. This means that in the time it takes you to blink, a seahorse could catch and swallow its prey 25 times. Here's how it works. The seahorse freezes among the seaweed, gripping a stem with its tail. It's motionless. It's invisible. We already know its camouflage is nearly perfect. Its eyes rotate independently of each other, each scanning its sector of space. The left eye can look forward, while the right can look back. The seahorse has color vision, and its range of sight reaches about 5 meters, which is phenomenal for a creature the size of a pinky finger. It sees everything around it while remaining completely still. And then a tiny shrimp comes into view, a minuscule, almost transparent copepod drifting in the water. The seahorse slowly, barely noticeably, turns its head, aiming its snout at the target. Then the mechanism that biologists call pivot capture kicks in. The seahorse's head snaps back sharply, thanks to a springy tendon that stores energy like a pulled bowstring. The mouth cavity instantly expands, the pressure inside drops, and water, along with the shrimp, is sucked into the tubular snout like a vacuum. The prey doesn't even have time to react. It physically lacks the time to dart away because 4 milliseconds is faster than the shrimp's nervous system can send a signal to its muscles. And here's what's even more astonishing. At the moment of attack, the seahorse makes a clicking sound, a distinct short noise that can be recorded with an underwater microphone. This click occurs from the friction of 2 bones in the skull, the supracranial crest and the coronet, that unique growth on the top of its head. The sound is a byproduct of the rapid head movement, but scientists believe it serves an additional function. Seahorses may use these clicks to communicate with each other over distances. A fish that can't swim communicates through sound across the water. Now, let's talk about reproduction. And here, the seahorse completely breaks the mold of what we consider normal in the animal kingdom. The territory of a female seahorse is about 100 square meters. That's roughly a quarter of a tennis court. For such a tiny creature, it's a vast space that she patrols daily in search of food. The male's territory is half a square meter. Literally a patch of seabed the size of a cutting board. And on this tiny patch unfolds one of the most touching ritual systems in nature. Every morning throughout the mating season, the female swims to the male's territory and they dance. The dance lasts up to an hour. They circle around each other, entwining their tails, moving up and down in sync, changing colors. The male lights up in bright tones, demonstrating his readiness. These morning dances aren't just a ritual, they're a synchronization mechanism. The pair adjust their biological cycles to each other so that when the moment is right, everything works perfectly. And when that moment arrives, something unique happens. The female swims up to the male. They rise vertically in the water column, locking snouts, and the female transfers her eggs directly into the male's brood pouch through a special ovipositor, not into a nest, not to the bottom, but into the partner's body. After this, the female swims away, and the male remains to carry the offspring. The male's pregnancy lasts from 10 days to 6 weeks, depending on the species. And this isn't just passive storage of eggs in a pouch. Inside the brood pouch, a dense network of blood vessels grows, through which the father supplies developing embryos with oxygen and nutrients. Geneticists have discovered that the seahorse genome has a significantly expanded family of genes coding for special enzymes, astaxin metalloproteases. These genes are most active in the brood pouch, and scientists believe they provide the entire biochemical mechanism for male pregnancy. When the time comes, the male grips a seaweed stem with his tail, and his body begins to rhythmically contract, and the fry emerge from the pouch. Depending on the species, there can be anywhere from several dozen to 1,500. Each fry is about 7 millimeters long, smaller than a grain of rice. For the first 2 to 3 weeks, they drift in the plankton layer of the ocean, completely defenseless, carried by currents. No camouflage, no gripping tail, just a tiny transparent body in the endless expanse of water. Fewer than one fry in 1,000 survives. All the others become food for other ocean inhabitants within the first days of life. And this is why the male gives birth to so many. It's the only way to ensure that at least a few offspring reach adulthood and begin to dance their morning dances on a tiny patch of seabed. In the next part, we'll discuss how many species of seahorses exist, why 37 million of these animals are caught from the ocean every year, and what will happen to coastal ecosystems if seahorses disappear. To date, science recognizes about 46 species of seahorses. 46 ways to be the same impossible creature, and yet look completely different. The smallest of them is Hippocampus satomia, found in the tropical waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. It measures less than 2 centimeters in length. That's smaller than your thumbnail. An adult that has completed the journey from planktonic fry to a fully formed fish capable of changing color and hunting with lightning speed fits on the tip of a finger. And at the other end of the scale is the big-bellied seahorse from the waters of southern Australia and New Zealand. It grows up to 35 centimeters. That's the size of a human forearm from elbow to fingertips. Between these two extremes are dozens of species, each with its own coloration, size, range, and coronet, unique as we've already established for each individual. The geography of seahorse habitats is also astonishing. They live in a range from 52 degrees north latitude to 45 degrees south. If you translate this onto a map, it shows that seahorses inhabit cold, murky waters off the British Isles, where 2 species somehow survive in conditions that are hard to call tropical, to the vibrant coral reefs of Southeast Asia and the Australian coast. This is a colossal range for an animal that can't swim quickly and is tied to a patch of seabed the size of a cutting board. And here begins the part of the story that you want to look away from, but can't. In 2002, all species of the genus Hippocampus were listed in Appendix 2 of the CITES Convention, an international agreement regulating trade in species threatened with extinction. Seahorses became one of the first marine fish in history to receive such protective status. Not sharks, not tunas, not whales, little seahorses. And when you learn the numbers, you'll understand why. Researchers estimate that at least 37 million seahorses enter global trade each year. 37 million, every year. And the overwhelming majority of them are caught not even intentionally. They die as bycatch during bottom trawling. Huge nets dragged along the seabed to catch shrimp or bottom fish scoop up everything in their path. Seaweed, corals, sponges, and seahorses that cling to stems and can't escape the approaching wall. They are pulled to the surface already dead or dying, sorted, and sent for sale. The main consumer is traditional Chinese medicine. Dried seahorses have been used in it for centuries, added to powders and tinctures, attributed with healing properties that modern science does not support. The second largest market is the aquarium industry. Live seahorses are sold as exotic pets, although they are extremely difficult to keep in captivity and often die within the first months. The third market is souvenirs. Dried and lacquered seahorses are sold in coastal tourist shops worldwide, from Thailand to Mexico. Several countries have tried to stop this. Thailand, the Philippines, and Indonesia have imposed a complete ban on the export of seahorses. It sounds decisive, but the reality turned out to be bitter. Instead of saving populations, the ban led to the formation of a powerful black market. Trade didn't disappear. It went underground and became even less controlled. Just in Hong Kong in 2018, customs intercepted 45 shipments of smuggled dried seahorses weighing around 470 kilograms. That doesn't sound too scary until you count it. 470 kilograms of dried seahorses equals about 175,000 individual animals. In 45 shipments, in one city, in 1 year. And that's just what was intercepted. Today, about 35% of all seahorse species are classified as vulnerable, endangered, or close to that threshold. 1 in 3 species is teetering on the brink. And here's something crucial to understand that makes the situation with seahorses fundamentally different from that of, say, tuna or cod. Tuna is a pelagic fish. It swims in open ocean, covering thousands of kilometers, and its population is distributed across vast waters. If it becomes dangerous in one place, the tuna simply swims elsewhere. It has speed, it has space, it has mobility. The seahorse has none of that. The male is tied to his half-square meter of seabed. The female returns to him every morning for a dance. Their reproductive system is built on precise geographical attachment, on a specific stem of seaweed, on a specific patch of reef, on a specific piece of seagrass. And when that patch is destroyed, and seagrass meadows are disappearing worldwide due to pollution, construction, and climate change, along with it, not just the habitat is destroyed. The entire reproductive system is obliterated. The male loses its territory. The female loses her route. A pair that could synchronize their cycles every morning and produce 1,500 fry simply ceases to exist as a reproductive unit. Not because the seahorses died, but because that 1 square meter, around which their entire life was built, has vanished. And this is why biologists increasingly refer to the seahorse as an indicator species. This creature's condition can be used to judge the health of the entire coastal ecosystem. If seahorses live in a bay, it means there's seagrass, clean water, stable seabed, plankton, and normal oxygen levels. If seahorses disappear, it means something has gone wrong at a systemic level, not with one species, but with all shallow waters. We began this story with a paradox, a fish without teeth, without a stomach, without speed, and without fins that has lived for 50 million years. We've navigated through its genetics, its armor and camouflage, its lightning-fast hunting, and the only case of full male pregnancy in the animal kingdom. And we've concluded with a simple but important thought. The seahorse isn't just a cute picture for a children's encyclopedia. It's a living sensor embedded in the ocean. As long as it's alive, the ocean breathes. When it disappears, it will mean that we've lost something far greater than just one strange fish.